right, welcome everybody back to another episode of the Big Doug and Carmi Show. Your one-stop shop for all things Commanders. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell so that you never miss an episode like today's episode with Jarvis Davis. Jarvis, what's happening, man?
I'm doing well, man. How about yourself, man?
Oh man, loving it. Football is back and we're in the swing of things. Can't be more excited than this. Let's see. We're familiar in Washington with Raheem Morris. How do you find him as a head coach?
One of the things that made me got me a little bit excited about Raheem Morris because I feel like he was a guy that's a really good communicator when it comes to the players. His first stint when he was with Dan, on Dan Quinn's staff was very interesting to me because I kind of got a chance to see up close in how he operates, and he's always been a guy that's been able to communicate, whether it be the quarterback or the guy that's on the 90-man roster trying to make the squad. So I think that that was a big thing that I looked at when he first came in, and I was like, okay, this guy could potentially be a good head coach. Now, that may have changed a little bit because I feel like some of the decisions that he's made within the past week and some of the decisions he's made throughout his tenure as head coach of this team, because he had an interim tag once Dan Quinn got fired before, it just feels like I have to question almost everything that he does right now. And that's not a good feeling because, like I said, from the beginning when the Falcons were in talks with him and they were kind of playing the song and dance with Bill Belichick, I was like, okay, I think I like Raheem Morris a little bit better than I like Bill Belichick at this point in his coaching career. So, but yeah, lately, man, it's starting to get a little weird down here in Atlanta.
Big losses tend to do that, particularly in division. Panthers maybe aren't quite as bad as everybody thinks. Not good enough to be beating the Falcons the way they did on Sunday. With Raheem Morris, we have it here in Washington with Cliff Kingsbury. Sometimes guys end up being better coordinators than they are head coaches, and that's okay. That's not a knock. It's just everybody is better at some things and not others. One thing I always did like about Raheem Morris is he's kind of been cross-trained. He's not only been a defensive coach, he's been on the offensive side of the ball, which I appreciate. In the end, do you think we'll find that he just is a better coordinator, position coach, assistant coach? Head coach has a lot more to do with the head coaching position, as you know, has just as much to do with off the field stuff as it does with the X's and O's because of their weekly commitments. How do you feel Raheem fits into kind of that mold?
I think the jury is still out for me. Now, if you get the tone and tenor of the city, everybody ready to fire. As a matter of fact, it's funny that you mentioned Cliff Kingsbury. People talking about, oh yeah, hire Cliff Kingsbury as a head coach. I was like, did y'all see what happened in Arizona? Like, do we really want to go back there? So yeah, but for me, man, the jury is still out because I need to understand what he's going to do now. Like, because it's hot. Like, people are ready to get rid of him. I'm not saying that Arthur Blank is, but like the fan base is upset. They're calling for this man's head. They're trying to fire the offensive coordinator, all of that stuff. And I think, and he just fired the wide receiver coach.
Yes,
wide receiver coach Ike Hilliard just got fired, right? Somehow he totally forgot how to coach wide receivers. Even though last year, Drake London had one of his best years as a pro, and Darnell Mooney almost caught for 1,000 yards last year, even with Kirk Cousins going through his multiple injuries that he revealed during the Super Bowl week. So all of those things being said, I feel like I still want to see when stuff gets hot, when things aren't going well, what are you going to do as a head coach? And I think that's ultimately going to answer my question for me. It's going to answer the question for me as to whether or not he's basically just a really good defensive coordinator and he's not necessarily cut out to be or fit to be a head coach in this league.
Michael Penix got a couple of starts last year. Looked pretty good in his time there doing that. Obviously, he had the great success out in Washington. This year, there's always a book out on guys when they come back, and part of, as I recall, when he was being drafted out of Washington, there was everybody knew about the big arm Everybody kind of knew about the decision making. There was a ton of talent on that Washington team,
Sure.
so which makes life easier on him, offensive line and wide receivers, all in the NFL now. What have you seen from Penix so far? And are teams one of the things I noticed when he came out wasn't great over the middle of the field, and that's what NFL defensive coordinators will make you do if you are not good, is
Mhm.
make those over the field reads. Last week, it looked like he was uncomfortable trying to make those, maybe even lost on where the progressions were. What have you seen from him, and what are they trying to fix to get him back on track?
Just going back and watching the tape, man, like, it seems like, Giro Avero, excuse me, a defense coordinator for the Carolina Panthers, man, he was just consistently zone, zone, zone,
Oh,
zone, zone, just zone, read it. And I think part of it was Zach Robinson didn't necessarily have those route combinations that you would like in those particular zones. And then Michael Penix Jr. just seems like he just couldn't find a guy. There was one moment in that game against Carolina Panthers where he was having some success throwing the football over the field, and that was when they were in the hurry up, and the clock ended up running out on them because they didn't have any timeouts after that Darnell Mooney catch. And I was just like, okay, you need to get this guy in some type of tempo because it just seems like the offense is just slow. Because I mean, now granted, Michael Penix that was probably one of his worst game as a pro,
mhm.
right? And he's only 6 or 7 games into his career, but that was not a good game for him. But yeah, teams are running that zone and basically, like you mentioned, like forcing him to daring him to throw the football over the middle of the field. And he just he lives outside the numbers. He lives with that deep ball, and then teams are taking that away because of the different coverages that they're throwing at him as far as too high and all that stuff. But that underneath stuff, he's gonna have to get better at that because you know what happens in this league? It's a copycat league. If teams see what Avero did against Michael Penix Jr. and saw how much success they had, they're going to continue to run it until you do something about it. So I feel like Zach Robinson needs to come up with some concepts, give him some plays that he's comfortable with, have that conversation with him, say, hey man, what do you like? What do you see? What do you feel comfortable doing? And they're gonna have to figure that thing out because Zach Robinson has been in the booth for his entire time since he's been the OC for this team. They moved him down to the field now. So they're trying everything they possibly
Right.
can do, Doug, to try to figure this thing out. And we'll see if they're going to be able to do it. But yeah, Michael Penix, man, there is some tape out there that he's not reading that zone very well. And I feel like he's going to continue to see that.
Well, you know what they say, Jarvis. It's when it's man coverage, that's on the wide receiver to get open.
Sure.
In zone coverage, that's on the quarterback to be able to read those zones and
Absolutely.
find them. And
Absolutely.
some of that takes time. We get that. I mean, a lot of the young quarterbacks get busted with those zone coverages, trying to figure them out early in their careers. I saw the other day that while Penix was in Washington, he was one of the best quarterbacks when using play action. My understanding when I looked the other day, Atlanta is running one of the lowest numbers
Yep.
of play action in the
Like
league
low
right
percent.
now.
Super low.
What are we doing from Zach Robinson?
Yeah, man. That's the thing that I don't understand because like your running game is your strength of this
Yes,
offense.
right.
You have
Yes.
Bijan Robinson, like on our show on Locked On Sports Atlanta, we joke all the time about get a ball to Bijan. Like that's that blue magic. Like he's a special dude. Like when you give him the rock, he can do some special things. So to make life easier for your quarterback, how about that you play off of that, right? Okay. If we're having success running the football, let's do some play action. Let's mix this thing up a little bit and take some shots downfield and utilize that big arm that everyone was so fascinated about that I love. Because I remember vividly when I went down to Senior Bowl that year that Michael Penix Jr. came out, I was like, man, this dude is hands down the best quarterback in this game right now. Hands down from the accuracy standpoint, beautiful deep ball, getting the ball out of his hands, not holding on to the rock. Like I thought he was like the best guy, but I was like, I didn't think anything of it because I was like, oh, the Falcons just gave Kirk Cousins
Right.
$100 million in guarantees. So why would they look at this guy? So I was like, okay, it'll be cool to watch him. And then draft night comes around, and then here we are. But yeah, I think Zach Robinson he has to simplify things for Michael Penix Jr. And good thing is that they have an excellent running game. They're down Caleb McGarry. He's out for the season. Elijah Wilkinson has been solid in his spot. So you got to take advantage of that, because you know how it is coming off a play action, man. When you're running the ball, having that success, man, that's an easy read. It's such an easy read for the quarterback. So I feel like Zach Robinson has to implement that more in order to have some type of success on offense, because it's just been feeling like he's just been doing one of these numbers on his play sheet. It's just like there's no flow to the offense, man. So he has to get this done, because or otherwise people want to continue calling for his head because they want him out of here. Down here.
I bet.
If you listen to the streets down here in Atlanta, they want Zach Robinson up out of here. And I think that, man, he had some success last year. Some people don't want to admit that. Yeah, there was a lot of success, even with Kirk Cousins in his situation. But yeah, he has to find it. He has to find it because, you don't want to potentially lose to the Commanders and then you know who is coming to town, and they're looking like Super Bowl contenders right now in the Buffalo Bills.
Were you surprised that Penix was the pick? I mean, in a league where everybody is looking for mobility at the quarterback spot, the mobility hasn't been there since Indiana. So the arm is there. I think the leadership, I get there. I understand what the things are there are to like about Michael Penix Jr., but also at the same time, it just feels like stepping backwards as far as the evolution of what the quarterback is now. We just know, Jarvis, when you have the ability to run the ball from the quarterback position, it just changes the offense dramatically. They don't move him, and he don't like to move.
Yeah, that's a great point, because here's the thing, man. When it comes to Michael Penix Jr., he can run. Now, let me get that. Let me put that out there. He can run. But like you said, when you have the offensive coordinator who doesn't want to move him off that spot, and it's totally changed his game because he was dealing with so many injuries, right? So I feel like when you have a combination of basically changing the style of your play, when it comes to, when things break down and going off script, and trying to take off and make something happen with your legs, and you combine that with the offense coordinator who seemingly refuses to use play action, like I said, like I mentioned earlier, that's going to help your quarterback out. I just feel like it's an awful combination, and it has to change, right? I'm not sitting up here saying that, Michael Penix is going to have to start running RPOs and all that stuff. But what you can do to help move that thing along and get this offense moving, you can call those rollouts, those naked boots, and get him to moving off the spot, because at the end of the day, I play defensive line, Doug. And if I know that quarterback going to be in that exact spot, as soon as that ball snap until it's gone out of his hand, I'm teeing off. And you know what an example of that was? Last year when Kirk Cousins was under center, and he was coming off an injury, and that dude could not move to save his life to start the season. You started to see him move around a little bit, but everybody knew that Kirk was going to be right there. Wherever he caught that ball, that's where he's going to be until he releases it. And if they're, for whatever reason, they got that coverage is good, that means he's going to hold that bad boy, and he ain't going nowhere. So you're going to be able to get there. So I think that we're dealing with an offensive coordinator who is making things difficult for his young quarterback. And I think that there's another piece to this too, and we haven't really, talked about this. Michael Penix is really cognizant of not giving away the football. I know he threw 2 interceptions this past week, but when it comes to reading, going through your progressions and everything like that, he's going to that check down quick, fast, and a hurry. Almost to the point where it was like, all right, it's seemingly they're telling him to say, hey, man, when in doubt, get it to Bijan and let him go to work. And to the tune of, Bijan Robinson is leading his league. If I remember correctly, that he's leading the team in receiving yards. So that's not good. That's not good. That's not a good situation. So hopefully, Zach Robinson can start to simplify things for in this offense, start to use some play action, build off of what you already have, which is a solid run game, even though you're dealing with injuries up front. And I think that they will be okay because one thing about Penix is he's a gamer, man. He's a
Yeah.
baller. But I think just people, just so many people, and including myself, were just so shocked as the way he played this past Sunday against the Carolina Panthers because no one was expecting that. No one was expecting 30-0.
No.
Absolutely, no one was expecting that.
I wasn't. It got me kicked out of my Survivor, Jarvis. So I definitely was not expecting that.
My apologies, though.
Yes, very upset. Will Kirk Cousins be on the roster by the end of the year?
Yeah, they're prepared to have him on their roster because I think that the cost would just be too much for someone to trade for him because from what I hear, the Falcons are looking for the team to take on about half of that salary.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
I mean, who's going to be willing to do that, right? And give me some draft compensation as well. So it's almost to the point where, like, it's sunk cost. They're prepared. Like, it's in the budget. So, hey, this is what we're going to do to ride this bad boy out, and you're going to have the best backup quarterback in the league.
I'd suggest Marcus Mariota is the best backup quarterback in the league, but we can
Hey, man, we can have that discussion too, because as a matter of fact, man, speaking of Marcus Mariota, who do you think is going to be the starter? Do you think Jaden Daniels comes back, or we still looking at a reunion?
I think you'll get a reunion. I think they'll wait another week on Jaden. I think to expect Marcus to have the game he had last week, probably, on a weekly basis, probably in it anymore. But I think for a week or two, the nice thing, and we talked about this on the Opposition Wednesday show last week, is that the nice thing, it goes both ways with the backup quarterback. So it's nice for the Commanders. Cliff doesn't really have to change anything, right? When you go from one to the other. And I think back to when we had RG3 and Kirk Cousins. I mean, those were two totally different game plans, right?
Absolutely.
When Kirk comes in the game. So with this, it doesn't really change much of the game plan or the strategy. You're not, throwing out half the playbook. At the same time, the defensive coordinator, Ulbrich, doesn't really have to do much in the way of game planning, whether it's Jaden or Marcus. Obviously, Jaden is a much better player at this point of his career.
Sure.
But as far as game planning, it actually helps out both teams, which I think is interesting because that's generally not the way these things work. But I would guess that that they hold Jaden out another week. They said he's been wearing a brace, which obviously that's just preventative. But I think they want to play it real slow. As you know, it's a very long season coming up.
Absolutely, man. And I'm not surprised that you said it because, if I was watching the tape the Falcons playing the Carolina Panthers, I'm like, oh, Jaden, go ahead,
Take another week.
another seat, man. You know what I'm saying? Precautionary, reason. Like, you're gonna hear that word a lot. I feel like that. I feel that in my spirit, Doug. Like, I'm gonna hear precautionary and let Jaden go ahead and sit this thing out because, what they and the thing about another thing I want to, I thought when you brought up Jeff Ulbrich, like, the defense has played well, man. They have played so well.
I think that's probably the best. I think it was the best pass coverage defense in the league right now.
Yeah, like, they didn't play bad at all last week for me because, like, coming into the season, man, like, my expectations were that this offense was going to score 27 points a game, right?
On paper, they're loaded, right?
They're loaded, man. Like, all the draft capital that you spent, all the money that you put into this offense, and some of it is sitting on the sidelines chilling and with a hat on. But yeah, like, that's what I always follow the money when it comes to what the strength of a team is, right? Like, I did not foresee this defense being the strength of this team in the first 3 games of the season. I did not see that coming at all because you had so many young guys. You had Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr., these rookie pass rushers, they tend to struggle for the most part, right? So most of those guys don't come in just getting 6-7 sacks or 8 to 10 sacks, double-digit sacks in their first year. So I was expecting those guys to kind of figure it out. I like Jeff Ulbrich as a coach. I feel like he's a really good coach, and I think we've seen that in these first few games. So yeah, for me, it's a matter of what this. Now I'm looking at defense like, okay, y'all gonna have to help this team out. Y'all gonna have to get these guys some short fields to work with, some turnovers. Like this is gonna like they basically won that game in Minnesota. Like they
Right.
took that bad boy over. They made people question whether or not JJ McCarthy is gonna be a good quarterback in this league. That's how well they played. So, and I think that until this offense gets it figured out, they're gonna have to play very, very close to the way they played in Minnesota in order for this team to get a win because Zach Robinson, he has to get this thing figured out, and he has to get it figured out quickly.
Fontenot was tired of not being able to get to the quarterback. They went out and spent big resources on getting to the pass rusher. James Pierce Jr., obviously from Tennessee, we're very familiar with, and one of my favorite Bulldogs, Walker. Where are they using him in? Are they using him like they did at Georgia, where he's more of a linebacker, or do they see him more as a true edge defender?
Right now, so let me go back to like the Georgia days. Like I've always said that Jalen Walker was an edge player in my book. Now, if you still end up in telling me that you're gonna do a carbon copy of a edge player, it's not gonna look like Jalen Walker at
Right.
all. Because when you talking about 6'4", 260, long arms, like James Pierce Jr. looks like a carbon copy, edge rusher. But Jalen Walker doesn't look like that. But he plays like that, And I saw him every Saturday at Georgia covering those guys. There were moments where he just took over games, and specifically more recently in those Texas matchups. Like he took some people's lunches, and he did it on a consistent basis. So, but they're using him right now as an edge guy. But I've seen some things on tape,
Yeah. Right.
Doug, and they've used him at that stand-up linebacker spot for sure. Like that whole mug look where they'll have both linebackers up in the A gaps, standing like they're, like little show blitzes and everything like that. He's been in that. And I think that ultimately, given where Caden Ellis is in his career, he has 1 year left on his contract. Given the financial situation, I feel like Jalen Walker might step into that role of being that stand-up guy that can rush for you. But of course, they always gonna say, "Oh yeah, we're gonna have him at the edge right now," and all that stuff. So they're never gonna reveal that. But I feel like ultimately he ends up being that combo guy like he was at Georgia.
For the people that watch this podcast all the time, the only thing I love more than Commanders is my Georgia Bulldogs. And
Yes, sir.
Jalen Walker just really was one of my favorite guys of all time, one of those do it alls. And I hope they don't just stick him at edge and tell him, go get the quarterback, because I think there's a whole lot more that he can do and be productive as far
Sure,
as just
sure.
that speed and that range is just incredible.
Yeah, man, he's a special player, man. Like and he was a coach's son. You know how you always talk about those guys are always the guys that are just super coachable, right? For obvious reasons. And that's why I think that, and I think that the plan that they have for him, I'm okay with, because here's why: is they needed so much help up front, like literally rushing the passer, like. And I feel like Terry Fontenot said, blank them picks. Like, we've been stinking getting to the quarterback for so long. Like, I'm about to be intentional about this thing. So that's why I feel like he traded that first round pick. Whether I agree with it or not, it doesn't matter, because if you end up in the top 10 in sacks at the end of the year, ain't nobody gonna be worried about that doggone first round pick. Nobody can care less about it. So, so I feel like they put him in that spot so he can just focus in on that in his first year. And then I think that once he kind of gets his grasp of that in his first year, I feel like they'll start to gradually kind of move to that combo role and stand up line, because he's good at that too. He looks
Yeah.
good dropping and
He
and,
he
and, and
reminds me a
spying on the
little bit of
quarterback.
Frankie Louvu for Washington, a guy that, a little undersized,
Sure.
but can hold up at the point of attack well enough to be able to play those different positions. How has I mean, the There was word on James Pierce, whether right or wrong, before the draft started. How has he been in Atlanta?
Oh, I think he's been fine. He's been
Okay.
totally fine, and I think that I can understand why people might be a little questionable as to who he is as a person, because like I play with guys like James Pierce, right? You know, guys he just want to play ball, man. Like he don't really care about trying to appease people, you know, like he's gonna be who he is. And if you don't like that, oh well. Like I can feel that. I can sense that when, you know, in talking to him in the spring and in training camp as well. And you know, I mean, he don't mean anything by it. It's just that that's just how he is. And, you know, because there was some dust ups, you know, with the offensive line, and guys tend to kind of be pointed with their words towards him, and he doesn't care. He's just gonna go out there and he just want to play ball. So, you know, I can understand why people on the outside, from an outside perspective, you're like, oh man, you got to question this character. Then scouts may not pick up on that, you know, because there's a you have to have a certain type of eye, a certain type of feel to be able to acknowledge that and see it for what it is, and not make assumptions. And I think that that's what it was mostly for me. From my perspective, is that people made assumptions about him because of he may seem standoffish when it's not that he was standoffish. He was just like, hey, man, I'm here to play ball. I don't really care about what you're talking about. And to be honest with you, Doug, Falcons need some guys like a guy like that,
Yeah,
because at the end of the day, man, I always use this analogy. If I go walk into a locker room, my daughters are young, you know, but if they were of age, like I don't want to walk into a locker room and every guy in that locker room I would allow to date my daughter.
right. Sure. Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Yep.
I don't want that. I don't want that as a general manager, as a lover of watching football and all that stuff, and just taking in the game, because I know locker rooms aren't they can't that's not real. That's not realistic
Yeah.
because you have to have guys that are on the edge. Now, some teams, Cincinnati Bengals, they're willing to go over the edge, right?
Yep.
But you know, there are going to be some guys that can have should have questions about. You should question certain things about them. But it's all about production on the field, man. And as long as they stay out of trouble, like we're not really tripping about who you are and as a person. So I feel like, you know, James Pierce was the type of guy that the Falcons needed to get into that locker room, because I mean, a lot of those guys in the locker room, man, they're great with the media, but like I said, if I walk into a locker room and everybody cool, like you know, I start to question a couple of things when it comes to winning football games.
Well, and the one thing that you can say about James, and you can't teach it, is that bend. I mean, there are only a certain amount of people that are just
Man,
that bendy,
yeah,
and he's one of my Von Miller. When he got to Washington, they were asking him. He says, "Listen, I wake up in the morning sacking quarterbacks. That's not a problem." And Von still got that bend and get
still
off.
got it, man.
It's
Ooh,
incredible to see it up
yeah.
close. It was the bend is unreal. Like I said, there's only 10 or 15 guys in the world that can get that low to the ground and keep moving. Jarvis, I always ask this on Wednesdays.
Mhm.
If Rock came to you and said, Jarvis, what we got to do this week to get this win over the Commanders, get back on track, you tell him what?
All right, Ra, listen to your boy, man. Let me tell you something. You got to establish the run, man. That has to be the foundation of your offense. I understand that you want to sling the ball out around the yard or show off this arm and justify why you all picked this guy when you had just paid $100 million in guarantees to Kirk Cousins. But where you are right now, like this has to be the game where you go to Zach and say, run the football. And we need to get some easy throws for our quarterback via play action. Like that has to be, and that's it. That's it. You don't have to do anything else. Because once you establish that, because you know, commanders can, you know, they can be a little giving, you know, on the defense side of the football. So I think that in that world, that's what Rod has to tell Zach Robinson. And as far as the defense, that conversation needs to go like this. Keep doing what you're doing, Jeff.
Right.
Keep doing what you're doing, Jeff Obert, because you know, let's get a little bit more pressure. Let's get a little bit more pressure, right? Like sacking the quarterback once, hit him a few times. Bryce Young, he's the type of quarterback that needs to be off his rocker. He's a timing guy. Dave Canales had a great game plan to, get the ball out of his hands really quickly and all that stuff. But if it's Marcus Mariota, y'all should be very familiar with his game, and he should not be that guy to beat you on Sunday.
It'll be interesting. This version of the Commanders defense is rolling out a top 10 run defense
Sure.
and a mid-20s passing defense. It was the exact opposite last year. So I'm interested to see how that works with my favorite running back in the league. And then the other way around is, how will the injuries that have been so brutal for the Commanders affect them this week? Like I said, I doubt Jaden goes. I don't think there's any chance Terry goes. Terry might be out for a good amount of time. He's had multiple second opinions on what was supposed to be a quad, including one of the premier core body specialists in the country. It doesn't sound good to me. So doubt he's there. Noah Brown might not be there. They just replaced both guards last week. Chris Paul played well, but how will he hold up against one of the better pass rushes that they'll see? It's been brutal for the rookie out of Oregon, Josh Conley Jr., who literally has seen the Packers defense, the Giants defense, and now the Falcons defense. It's been a murderous row for a kid that's just getting in. Of course, Tunsil's on the other side. So when you look at it, Jarvis, it's like a 2.5 point game. Either way you look at it, what do you like this score? And are we looking at a lot of points or more of a slow, grinded out game?
I think it's going to be a grinded out game, and I feel like that might work in the Falcons' favor, being that, hey, running the ball and playing good defense, man, and playing tennis. That's how I look at it. They just need to play tennis, because if Marcus Mariota is their starting quarterback, he's going to give you the football. I feel that's just traditionally, right? What I'm saying? I know he had a good game last week, but traditionally he will give you the football if you do what you're supposed to do. So I feel like this is a low scoring one. I think a 24-17 type game in the Falcons' favor. I feel like that's what it's going to be.
It'll be interesting. The other thing that Commanders don't do very well is guard the tight end, and could be a big game for Kyle Pitts. What is it about Kyle Pitts, another one of these Florida guys that's all size and no game?
Yeah, man. Kyle Pitts is an interesting one too, because I wasn't all that excited when the Falcons took him.
Okay.
And it just
That was because he was a Florida Gator, or just because?
No, it's just a coincidence, Doug. It's just a big coincidence. But no, I think his issue has been doing the little things, doing the extra stuff, like making sure he understands what he's supposed to do from a play in and play out base. Because the one thing that has been a constant since he got drafted, and all you hear from his teammates, with his teammates saying it, they weren't saying it in a disparaging way, but they were saying it because they knew that he needed to be basically taking the job seriously, right? Because he's a uber talented cat, right? And there's no denying that. So when you're uber talented, even if you're playing in the SEC, you're gonna get some favorable matchups, and you're gonna eat. You're gonna do some production. But when you get to the NFL, man, everybody is good. Yeah. There's no weak game. Like, if you don't do that extra stuff, commit to being the best player that you could possibly be by doing all the extra stuff, and that's what's going to happen. You're going to have production. Of course, you're dealing with the injuries, having the injuries as well, and coming off the injury, like, it just he hasn't been able to put it all together. And I think that a big part of that is that he doesn't necessarily know what he needs to do in order to be one of those tight ends that he was drafted to be, right? Because he's the highest drafted tight end in the NFL draft era, right? So it's gonna be hard to live up to that standard, but he just needs to figure out how to put it all together, because his teammates have said it. Like, hey man, all he has to do is do blah 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 blah. And we've heard that before.
Yes, we
you
have.
know, I've heard I know you've heard that from your mama. I've heard that from my daddy and my mama, or your daddy as well. So yeah,
Uh-huh.
all you gotta do is do this. Yeah, okay, but you gotta do it though. And I don't
Right.
think Kyle has been that guy to go out and accomplish those things and be healthy and put all that stuff together to have some success like people think that he should.
I know we had talked about 25 minutes. We're up on 35 minutes, but I can't let you get out of here without getting your thoughts on what this Bulldog team's going to look like. Not the most talented,
Sure.
a bit younger than what we've been used to the last couple of years. What
Mhm.
do you make of this year's Bulldog team?
I think that Gunnar Stockton has to continue to do what he did
I
against
didn't
Tennessee.
realize his legs were like that. I don't know about you, but I didn't realize he had that
Yeah, people
at all.
try to tell me a lot, like try to tell me a lot. Oh, Gunnar, he can run, he can run. I was like, well, I ain't really seen that, but hey, when you have to, he was able to do it right against Tennessee, and that throw to London
Oh
Humphreys,
man,
man. Oh
what a
my
gun!
gosh, that's what I want to see, because I wasn't the biggest believer in Gunnar Stockton and his capabilities. I just feel like he's one of those guys that Kirby loves. You stick around,
Uh-huh.
long enough, and you're gonna play. And I feel like Kirby loves those guys and he's loyal to those guys. And I totally get that as a coach, especially in today's game. I get it. But he's gonna have to continue to do that, be that guy, right? When they need him, when the defense is giving up all those big plays and and everything, and it's a shootout, and you on the road and first SEC game, and that's the type of stuff that Kirby, I know Kirby was probably drinking like 7 shots after that game once he got back to the crib, man. He was
Game
just
was
like, whoa.
incredible.
Exactly. So yeah, that's what has to happen in order for this team to be in competition
Are they a
for
playoff team?
playoffs like they want. Like,
Are
yeah.
they a playoff team in your mind?
If Gunner plays like this, yeah,
Yes,
they
right.
want to get the things fixed on defense. Like, you can't continue to give up big plays like that. But if Gunner continues to play like this, they can, like, I go back to the old school adage, man. I may sound like a broken record. That running game has to work. Like, they have to get it going, and then they get all the issues on that right tackle spot, man. They dealing with some injuries up front on the offensive line that, like I said, running the ball, being able to have success running the football is going to quell a lot of those things. And you combine that with Gunner continue to make those necessary throws in those moments. Yeah, I won't doubt Georgia until they're out. Like, I
That's
can't.
right.
They're the type of team that deserves the benefit of the doubt. Kirby deserves the benefit of the doubt. He's one of the best coaches in the country, if not the best, in my opinion. So yeah, that's where I'm at with the Georgia Bulldogs.
They missed Smile London more than I think they realized.
Yeah,
I
man.
was stunned that he went that late in the draft. He's exactly I mean, of course, he went to the Eagles, right? Because all Georgia
Yeah,
Bulldogs do
of
now.
course. That's right.
Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, he's exactly
Can't
what
find
the
a job,
league's
you gonna go to
looking
the
for.
Eagles. They're gonna call you.
He's exactly what the modern NFL are looking for in a linebacker. I was stunned he went that late.
Yeah,
Um,
man.
Jarvis, this has been great, man. I appreciate you. Fantastic.
Absolutely, Doug, man. Thanks for having me. Anytime, man. Just let me know.
I'll do it. Thank you, bud.
I better take it easy.